Okay, so pulling is a technique that is often applied to handles and also just any type of clay structure that you want to be just very like long and flowy. So with pulling, you're just going to need to start out with a piece of clay. I would say don't start with anything bigger than 2 pounds. This is probably like a pound and a half of clay. And what I like to do, how I like to pull my handle forms or whatever sort of like I can make like a snake like form. I could do octopus. Um, what are they called? Tentacles. I can make octopus tentacles using the pulling technique. So it is something that we can apply to handles and functional objects, but it is also something that can be really easily incorporated into sculpture. So I'm just going to start with a piece of clay and I'm going to hammer it into a kind of like a potato like shape. And I want to make sure there are not any like great big gaping gaps in my clay. So I'm just going to smooth it all up a little bit. So I'm going to have a bucket of water, and this is going to take quite a lot of water. It's pretty much just this act of water and repetition, and it's very much how you hold your hand as well. So I'm going to hold my little tiny potato that I made, and I'm just squeezing this right now because I'm sort of making a handle, because once this hand gets wet and super slippery, I don't want to drop my form into my bucket of water. So I like to try to make like a nice little handle for myself. There, you can see there. So I have my handle created. I have my bucket of water, and I'm just gonna start by getting my hand really wet, holding my potato over the bucket of water, and very gently, I'm just going to repetitively pull the clay downwards, making sure to keep it just very, very saturated as I pull. I'm going for a circular shape. So I'm avoiding using any sort of knuckles in this hand that's doing the pulling, and I'm very much using like the flap of my skin, this malleable flap of skin, to hold the clay and create a nice round edge here. But I can also twist this hand and kind of move that around too to further guarantee a circular shape. Um, You can also make a sort of flat rectangular shape too, which I can show you a bit how to do as well. So I'm making handles right now. So I'm gonna try to make this just a little bit longer for a handle, because you can really have a lot of fun. You can do a lot with the handles if you would like. It takes a lot of repetition. You might find at some point there's like a weakness happening at the very tip of your thing that you're pulling, the handle that you're pulling, and you can just try to hold, like just rip that any sort of piece that wants to fall off, just let it fall off and drop it in your bucket, because you're also taking the meat from up here where your handle is and you're pulling it down at the same time that you are applying a bunch of water. So I usually tend to pull a lot more for sculptures in general, and I find that for me it's always a little bit thicker than it is down here. But that just means that I'm going to just focus on applying a little bit more pressure from here to here, and then just sort of loosen up and kind of glide my hand over the rest if I want that to be one consistent thickness. Okay, so then when that's done, I'm gonna have a board, or you can have your cardboard board next to you. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna just cut that off. I can reuse this clay, so I'll just set that aside. And I can form the shape of my handle right now. So that could be the part that goes into the wall of the mug. And I can just let this dry like this. And these will be really beautiful. This would be a very beautiful handle. Okay, so let's say you want to make a handle that is kind of flat, has a flat edge. So just gonna start getting it going. If you get too much slip on your hands while you're pulling, it'll make it harder to do this technique. So just keep your hands free of slip. And I recommend that in general while you work too. Just kind of keep your hands on the cleaner side. It'll always make touching and working with the clay more fun and satisfying as well, and will prevent sticking from happening. And it also will help you control how your projects are drying while you work on them. Just something to always keep in mind. Okay, so I'm trying to make a more flat-edged handle. So I just kind of started out pulling a fairly cylindrical style handle. And now I'm going to just, instead of using this circular part of my hand, I'm going to just use like my fingertips, the pads of my fingertips, to make a more flat edged handle. And then that just means I just sit here on repeat, dipping my hands in the water as I go down, just making sure my hands are really wet. And I'm slowly just gliding over, making one edge. See how it's flattening a little bit? That's because I'm using my thumb and that part that has a lot of clay, my thumb, and right there on my fingertips to repetitively pull this clay down. I'm switching sides, you know, I want to be flat. I want it to have 4 edges. So repetitively going this direction, repetitively hitting the sides as well. And that's looking pretty good. So set that down. Let's go ahead and I'm cutting it from my little potato starter. And if I want this to be a handle, I can just have that dry like this. Okay, so yeah, I recommend pulling all 4 of your handles at the same time and then just leaving them out to dry. Put some plastic over it while it dries for maybe a night. And then it's just when you pull the clay, it gets so wet and sticky that it's easier to just sort of let these get leather hard and then attach them to the mug cylinder or the mug body. So you can control the shape a little bit while pulling. This one is the one with 4 edges, and then this is the more just soft circular one. And that is how you pull handles for your mug project, or even how you can pull any sort of organic snake-like form for any future sculptural projects as well.